In this video, we're going to carry on with our car modeling series in Plasticity by detailing some of the glass on the car, so stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design. We're going to carry on with the same model and we're going to add some more detail. So I mentioned it obviously in most of the videos, but we are going through this problem in real time, adding details, and any mistakes or problems we run into, we're going to address them and deal with them. We had some issues with this side glass. We redid some of the details on the hood and the roof, for example, and this video is no exception. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a bit more detail to the glass area of this car. We'll probably take a look at some other areas. I think I may want to readdress this front section. I don't really like that little bulge there, but we'll have to just see where the time takes us. I want to keep these videos around 20 to 30 minutes if possible. So to get started, we're going to get rid of the other side of the car because there's no point in working on both sides unless we absolutely have to. And what I want to do is I want to duplicate the glass, pretty much everything here. Now, when we modeled the rear, we left this back little section here and we didn't bother with tangency on pretty much any of this stuff. And part of the reason is because I know that I'm going to hack this part out and make a little spoiler. So I know this back section is going to curl up. I wasn't really concerned with trying to drive tangency there. But what we want to do is we want to take all these sections and even this little section here, which is still part of the glass, and use Shift D to duplicate. Now with the duplicate, I'm going to hide it for right now. And then I want to take that same selection and I'm going to delete it. Now I could have also just done Alt and J to unjoin, but sometimes you start with one tool and you just stick with it. There's really not a pro or a con to either. Unjoin might have been quicker in this case. But one thing you'll notice is that when we duplicated this, some of those additional lines are now gone. Where we originally had, if I do Control Z, let's go ahead and hide this. If I do Control Z and undo, originally there were some extra edges here. So we can kind of see those extra edges, but I'm going to delete it and the duplicate there has sort of healed itself. So this is one benefit to kind of going ahead and deleting and duplicating, because when we duplicate something, it actually has the ability to rebuild it. And sometimes it will get rid of those edges. Now this one was here when we created the windscreen and this top glass. The other ones we added in, we actually split so we'd have a place for this to go. But now that the A pillar carries all the way back around and becomes the C pillar, that's nice and smooth. There's no breaks or edges there. But what we want to do with this body is I'm going to just simply move it down. So G and Z and just bring it down a little bit. Now the main reason I want to do that is because I don't necessarily want a bubble concept. I don't want everything to have a nice smooth transition into this pillar. And realistically, what I'm going to do is cut away some of this roof and probably have part of the A pillar blend over and down. So that's kind of what I'm thinking will happen. But again, just to give it a little bit more realism, we want to make those changes. We're going to cut out glass on the back side as well. So we have to figure out where the roof line is going to end. But this is a great starting point. And before I get too far, I'm going to go to my edge selection and I'm going to try and loft between these two with no tangency. So I'm going to go from there and we'll go to there. It should just be two edge selections. Oh, looks like we got some more back here. Even though the edges are gone, it's still broken up. And we'll hit L for loft. Now, as long as we're not driving tangency, as long as it's G0, the ends should just go straight between. If you're driving tangency, then it follows the curvature or the tangency direction of the surface. But if we're using G0, it should just go straight. And for what we're doing, that's perfectly fine. So that gives us a little bit of a ridge or a lip. And kind of full disclosure, with this model, there will be a point where we stop and you can certainly carry on and add more detail. But I don't even know, I mean, I guess we're 9 videos in, half an hour each video. We're pushing a lot of time here to get this concept done. I really don't want to spend another 5 hours doing a little detail work on it. That's certainly something that you can continue to do. We're just getting most of the big shapes out of the way. With this bottom section here, we also need to connect these two together. Looks like we got an edge here. So we'll do a loft. Once again, I'm going to do G0. And if we want, we can use this over here, shift select that edge, make sure it's G0, and then we can join these together. So back to our all selection, and I'm just going to join everything together, make it one sheet. Now I've got another sheet in here. I don't really know what this is. Let's find what that is. That's a little inside piece of the original grill. I don't really need that. I'm going to delete it. And then we've got a duplicate of the entire body because originally we sort of had this over fender thing here and we decided to roll it around. That's still a pretty interesting look. We could add some additional details to get those body lines back, but I'm going to leave that for now, just kind of hide it. All right, so now that we've sunken the roof down, I'm going to take maybe this section here. I'm going to duplicate it and then move it up a little bit and just see what that looks like. So basically we're bringing the roof line down a little bit, and then what we did was we have the glass drop down further than that. So in reality there is going to be a difference between those. And what I can do now is go to a top view and figure out where I want the roof to end. So I'm going to go to just a position here and then maybe pick another position out in space, and we'll do a blend curve. So at the beginning, all I care about is tangency, G0 on the end, and then I'll use that with C to cut this. Now, the reason I did it this way is because now I can delete that piece, and basically I still have the glass underneath, so you can kind of see here, and basically we just raised the roof up. So this gives me a panel that I can start to work if I want to add additional detail, and underneath I have the original section there. Now one problem is I deleted that curve. I can do Control Z to bring it back, but if this ever happens, you can always duplicate this, Shift D, and then hit C and cut that other surface there. Let's go ahead and hide this temporarily and get rid of that. So you can see that did not work. So let's do Control Z until before I deleted those curves. All right. So we'll get rid of this one. We'll use this to cut that. And then now we can get rid of these curves. And underneath here, we're going to hide this. And then we're going to Shift delete that. So now we've got sort of a roof stepped up. We've got the front glass. We've got the back glass. And then we've got this little discrepancy here because this inside face is a bit longer and lower. But again, we're going to change the shape of this. So I'm not too concerned with that yet. But what I want to do is Shift delete that face. Just completely get rid of it. Because what we're going to do is we're going to blend this edge here somewhere into the hood. So to figure out where that is, I'm going to use Control and R, hit Tab, and then just find a position where we want to break the hood up. Doesn't really matter. And then I'm going to delete this face. So go back to our All selection, Shift Delete, and then I need to split this up essentially. So we'll go to the top view. It's split up there, but it's not split up at the front. So I need this curve. We'll do Shift D. And then I will just add a tangent extension. So if I tap Shift here, it'll give me a tangent extension. Then I can use that as an imprint curve. Now, as we get further on into this series, I mean, we're already 9 videos in. I am trying to go a little bit faster because at this point you should be fairly comfortable with some of these tools. If it is going a bit too fast, I do apologize for that, but I think at this point we can probably go a bit faster. So now what we're going to do is use our favorite tool, Bridge Curve. We're going to come from this edge to this one. We'll be at 1 and 0. And we want at least tangency on both of those. And we're going to repeat the process on the back. So Bridge Curve from here to here. This one will be 0. This one will be 1. And G1 on both of those. And then we can go back to our edge selection. And we can do a loft between these. Tangent on both. This will be a guide, and this will be a guide as well. And I can get rid of those guide curves. So from the front, essentially what we're doing is we're just changing the roof line a little bit. Now we could do a bit more than that if we wanted to, but we're just changing the roof line a little bit. And if we hide the edges, and join everything together. Let's go ahead and join this back piece as well. It doesn't look awesome. Yeah, I don't really like the way that looks. So let's go ahead and undo. And we'll bring those curves back. Go all the way back until we cut the roof line. Yeah. All right. And again, something we can do in plasticity, we can decide that we don't like something, make that change. But what's happening here is the A pillar actually dips down and back up, and that's kind of messing with us. So what I want to do is maybe not combine those. Maybe I just want to leave the roof low. Probably look a bit better just because of the way that that's transitioning. The other thing that we could do is Control R tab, and we could split the A pillar up and then get rid of this piece, and where we want it to blend into the hood, we can blend it, and then we can leave it sharp where it transitions into the windscreen or the glass. But that's probably going to take a lot of work and not something I'm really super interested in doing. So I'm going to Control Z that. And I think what I'm going to do for now is just leave the roof where it is so we don't go down this path. But go back to our edge selection, and I do want to loft between these two. G0 continuity on both. Go back to my all selection. Select all these pieces and join them together. And that should just leave us with these little gaps here. So again, edge selection. We'll loft from there to there. G0 on both. And because everything is straight, I don't really care about that little corner there. So when I join it, it should heal any of the potential issues that I might have had there. And then we'll just repeat the process up front. So again, edge to edge, loft, G0 for both. And then go back to our all selection and join it all together. So we should be left with just a single sheet or body at this point. Now, again, we can always go back and tweak the A-pillar shape if we want. If we're happy with it here, maybe we want to make this thing a target top, then we can cut it. But the next thing that I want to do is I want to work on the glass on the side. So I think that this edge isn't needed. I'm going to hit delete to try to heal it. It doesn't look like it wants to get rid of it. So we're going to leave that there. This section here we're going to have as the B-pillar. We can potentially have a second little piece of glass here if we want, and then this piece of glass here. Now, I don't want to cut this up all the way down into this corner. So what I'm going to do is hit O for offset and begin dragging this in a little bit. I'm going to do the same thing back here. So O for offset and just make it visually similar. And then we can take this face and we can do Alt-J to unjoin, and then G, and we can move it in just a little bit. And we'll do the same thing to this one. Alt-J to unjoin, select it, G, move it in the X direction a little bit. And then we could go around and loft them together. I'm not going to worry about it for right now, just simply because it's just a time thing. But what you can do is you can hold down Alt and select that loop, and then hold down Shift and Alt and select that loop, and you should be able to loft with G0 between them. I can't even tell if that's G0 behind there. I think it is. Yeah. So that should work, but you can see that it's not perfect. There's like something didn't happen. So I'm going to do Control Z on that. And again, I'm not going to worry about it for right now, but that's kind of the process that we would go through. We can always come back and add more detail to that later if we want. But if we hide our edges, you can see is basically what we're trying to do is we're starting to divide up these sections. We want to give it a little bit of depth in 3D. So we're at about 15 minutes now. The next thing that I want to focus on is figuring out the back end. Now, I already mentioned that this edge, we don't have tangency. And actually at this point now, we've got this little dip down at the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that the glass section rolls back up into basically into like a little spoiler. So I'm going to do Control R, hit Tab, and I want to break this up right there. And then I want to do a bridge curve, and I'm going to go from this edge to this one here. Now, this is going to be kind of hard to see, so let me see if I can rotate it around. So we're going to go to 100% on that one. I'm going to go back to my all selection so I can see some vertices. 100% on that one, but G0 on the end. And what that allows us to do is basically drive tangency off of this glass and have it roll up just a little bit at the end. Once I'm done, what I'm going to do is take that last point, GZ, and move it up. Because I'm only moving that single vertex, these other three should stay in line and we should maintain tangency. And that's going to be sort of the new position of that spoiler. So the thing that gets a little tricky here is we need to repeat that process at the midline. So I'm going to do it here. Again, this is going to be 0. This will be 1. G0 on the end. We'll do G2 there. And then from a side view, I'm going to move that up a little bit higher than the other one. So basically what I'm trying to do is mimic where that position would be relative to the current body. And then we'll draw a line between them. We'll rebuild that. And we'll look at this thing from the back. And if we want to give it any curvature, just move those up slightly. Now the problem we're going to have here is we're not going to have tangency across that midline. So I need to actually redo that. I'm going to redo that with a bridge curve because I want to make sure that we do maintain tangency. So G0 there, G1 here, make sure that it's at the start, and then I can get rid of that one. I also want to extrude this. Again, it's kind of my personal preference. Anytime I'm doing anything at the midline, I want to make sure I have a tangency reference. Get rid of that curve. And actually, let's go ahead and shift delete these. So we're going to loft from here to here. We'll drive G1 continuity here and shift select the other edge. And then we can get rid of that little midline piece. So it's just a tiny little element. It's not a huge rise at the back, but it's kind of better than just having it end. So when we look at it from the top, we now have this section. And what we want to do is we want to blend it in. This section here doesn't have tangency. So what we want to do is we want to blend this shape into the rest of the body and have tangency here. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to get rid of this one, just Shift D. And I don't really care too much about that, but we do have the potential problem of the way that the glass ends here. So this is something that we're going to have to address. And partially we're going to have to do this by transitioning this down and then back up. And the way that that happens is we are going to do a bridge curve here. So 100%, we'll do G1 on both of them. And we're going to do another bridge curve from here to that point, G0 at the end, G1 at the start, and 100%. So from here, we'll go to our edge selection. We're going to select these and this one, and we'll loft. We'll do G1 here. This will be a guide, and this will be a guide, but this one will have G0 continuity. And what this should allow us to do is create a shape that transitions. Now, transition is going to be imperfect, but that's fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of work on it. So from our top-down view, we can kind of see how that shape curves this way. And what we can do is we can actually come up with, actually, let's use Control R. Let's split this up just in there somewhere. And we're going to do a bridge from, let's do it from here to there. So we'll go to 100% on both, G1 continuity on both. And actually on the end, let's do G0. Yeah, we'll do G0 there. And then we'll use that to imprint, so Shift I, and then we'll get rid of this piece, Shift Delete. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing that is because this allows me to transition from this edge here to basically a flat section at the back, theoretically. And we're going to just take a look at the shapes. We'll create another bridge curve on the back. And we'll set this one at 0. And we'll just do G1 for both of those. So with my edge selection, I'm just going to go ahead and grab these edges and try to do a patch. It might not work because things aren't joined together, so you can see it doesn't like that. So first, let's join all the pieces together. So J, that should leave us with a single sheet except for the glass up here. And now if I select these edges, it should have healed anything. We'll do tangency there. We can't drive tangency on this edge because we have a square corner right here. We'll just see what that looks like. Yeah, I'm not really loving that. It doesn't look great. So let's see, what can we do here to fix that? Looking at the shape, I think we could either bring the glass up so that it starts here and it ends high, or we could take the A pillar down, so basically bridge it over, or we could just have the entire spoiler be higher and not be a smooth transition to the glass, actually have a harder transition. That's probably the better way to go. So I think what we're going to do is let's get rid of this, Shift Delete, we'll get rid of that curve, we'll get rid of this face, and let's go ahead and Alt J on that, and then from the side, move it up. Now this isn't going to be a perfect solution, but what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of start here. So kind of figure out where that needs to be. And this will give us an idea of sort of the shape we're working with. So I'm going to use Alt and spin this thing around with the mouse wheel. Just kind of visually see where this lands. I think that works okay. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to duplicate this edge. So I don't actually want this piece here. I just wanted to kind of figure out where that wanted to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and extrude it. And then we are going to build out essentially the entire spoiler up to this point, and then we'll build out the rest of it over here. So I want to get rid of this piece because it's kind of awkward. And we want to carry this line back. So from the top, what I'm going to do is start a new line. I'm going to tap Shift to give me a reference here. And then from the side, I want to figure out where that point wants to be. So GZ, it's going to be lower than this one. And actually it looks like maybe come back a little bit. We'll keep the back flat for now. And once I have that position, then I'll use that endpoint for my bridge curve. So we'll come from here to there. The end point is going to be G0. The start point will be G1. And the trim will take care of that entire line for us. So now we've got this reference here. We know that it's tangent to this edge. And we just need to essentially build out the rest of this. So we're going to use bridge curve again. G0 on the end, G1 at the start. We'll put it at 0. And we'll do the same thing here. So we'll bridge from here to here. This time we're going to keep tangency on both of them. G1. And then we'll go to our edge selection and we'll loft. Well, this is a guide. Shift select this as a guide. And theoretically, this edge should have tangency there. So as we build out the rest of it, it should work just fine. So as we spin this around, now we've got that tiny little sort of duckbill spoiler. It's in the right position, has tangency with this. Now we can sort of build out the rest. So I'm going to get rid of this one completely. We know that this entire edge is tangent in this direction, or at least it should be. Actually, you know what? I take that back because we had a hard edge here. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of this face. And let's do a bridge curve here. We'll go to 100%, we'll go to 100% there, G1 continuity. And because there's a little bit of a raise right in the middle of this, it wants to dip down. But for our purposes, we should be able to at least get tangency between these two edges, even though we can't right here because we've got that hard transition. So let's give this a shot. Let's go ahead and loft between those. This is a guide. Shift select that as a guide, but do G0 here. And we can see that it doesn't want to work simply because this doesn't have tangency and this doesn't have tangency. So that's going to be problematic, but the way that we're going to fix that is to just divide this up and we'll just build this back piece for now. So kind of pick about the same location. We'll do another bridge curve and we'll just build the smooth transition here at the back. So 100%, 100%, G1 on both. And now we should be able to loft here to here. That's a guide, shift select that as a guide, and then join them together. All right. So now we'll do another bridge curve. We'll go to there, but G0 at the end, G1 at the start, and then edge selection. We'll loft from one to the other. This is a guide with G1 continuity. Shift select this with G0 and then join them together. All right, so we should be able to join this together as well. The only thing that's left is that little gap right there. But you can see we sort of built that tiny little lip. And it's a very minor difference from what we had. But it's a little bit higher in the middle and it kind of fades away at the corner. We could carry that all the way around if we wanted to, but that works for us. All right, and last thing I want to do is loft this and make sure I get all the edges selected. G0 on both. And then we'll go to join it all together. All right. So not as far as I wanted to get on the back end. We still need to kind of fill in this little piece here. This one could be some sort of duct, so we can build this area with a little bit of a scoop or something. Let's see, how do we want to do that? Let's see if we can do this real quick. So Control R. Let's go ahead and break that up there. Break it up. And it doesn't like that. And it doesn't want to break that one up. All right, so let's do a line from here. And we'll do Shift I to imprint it. That way we at least broke that up. Again, this doesn't really matter. We can heal these edges, especially when we put a new edge in, we can just delete it if you're worried about the visibility of it. But what we want to do is think about a scoop here. And I want to, let's see, I'm going to try to do a bridge curve between these and just see what it looks like. So we'll put that one at 0. This one wants to be at 1. And you can see that it wants to dip down, but what we're going to do is we're going to raise it up a little bit. So we're going to try G3 continuity, doesn't like it. We'll do G2. And then I'm going to rebuild the curve and make sure that at the edges I don't mess with anything. And I'm going to try to move this one up a little bit. And I'll move these ones up as well. And maybe bring this one back down. So very minor change, but what we're going to try to do is fill in this area. I'm going to use patch, G1 at both sides, G1 back here. All right, that's a very minor scoop, but we can live with it. And then I'm going to do another bridge curve. We'll do, let's see, 0 here, 100 there. Let's see what G1 looks like. Yeah, we'll do G2. And then we'll patch this in. So we'll try tangency here. Yeah, it's not going to like that. We can do tangency at the top. We can do tangency here, but this is still a sharp crease. But I'll accept that. And I'll probably come back and I'll do some more work there. But just at least for now as a placeholder, we can kind of see what that looks like. So I want to take this, all three of these pieces, and just mirror it as a final test before we save the file. We'll hide our edges and just take a look. So I think the detail with the windscreen and the roof, just kind of dipping those down a little bit, kind of helps. They're dropped below the A-pillar, so it adds a little bit more style to it. And because we just took the shape down, the shape matches. A lot of times you'll see the windscreens sort of fall away from the A-pillar at the bottom, which we could do if we wanted to. We also set these in a little bit and then started playing around with a scoop. I think that I'll probably come back and do something different with that area. But again, it was just kind of playing around with it to see what it looked like. We can get rid of it and patch it. I think that overall, I think the shape is working. There's certainly things that I would want to change about it. But it's all part of the process. You have to throw some shapes out and see what kind of sticks. I really like the midline carried around the front. I think that this bulge section here, I want to fix and flatten out. So probably redo this face, and without it rounding, I'll probably make it a bit more straight. And you know what? Even though we're 32 minutes in, let's just go ahead and do that real quick. I don't think that'll take too long. So I'm going to show my edges. I'm going to get rid of the other body. I'm going to shift delete that face. And then I want to connect those two together. So I'm going to use just a line. We're going to go from there to there. I am going to rebuild it. And I don't want it to be perfectly flat, so I'm going to give it just a little bit of curvature. Then we're going to extrude it. We'll get rid of the curve because we don't need it. And then we will loft from here to here. So lofting, we want tangency there. We need to select some guide curves. That'll be G0. And we'll need to select the guide curves here as well. Also G0, so we'll need to reset both of those. And then we'll get rid of this piece and join that back to the rest of everything. All right, so now if I mirror this and take a look, let's hide the edges. So a little bit better. I think it could still use a little bit of work, and probably what might be best is to basically build from this edge down and then fill in that smaller area. Sometimes when you're trying to make too big of a surface wrap around something, it won't work. But now we've got a hard edge here, and I think that shape just works a little bit better than the little bit of a bulge that was close to tangent. So I think I like that overall shape. So again, the inspiration, couple of different cars, kind of build the shapes out. The door line here is very C3, late 60s, 70s Corvette. And then the front kind of shape here is a little bit reminiscent of that, but it's also very like Ferrari-esque. The high back end, more modern C7 Corvette, but it just kind of takes on its own shape as we progress through it. But I think at this point, I want to go ahead and save this since we're 35 minutes in. In the next video, I am going to work on the back end some more. Like we're going to finally add some detail back here, maybe fix the scoop area, and then we can see where we get to from there. At this point, like you should have all the tools that you need to finish off the model and continue to work on adding your own details. We're not introducing anything new at this point. We're using the same tools over and over again. We used offset in this video, which we hadn't really used before, but that's a fairly common tool. But we're using bridge curve, we're using loft, we're using patch, and those are the main tools that we're using over and over again. So at this point, you should be fairly comfortable with those. You can certainly keep progressing on your own. I will likely try to wrap this video series up in the next video. Again, we're not going to put in a ton of time on doing little details to this model, at least for right now. If I get a lot of requests, I might circle back to it. But next video, we'll probably try to wrap things up, adding a few details in a few areas, but for the most part, we're going to be pretty close to done. But if you have any questions on anything we've seen so far, please let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.